For over a decade, one message played on repeat: be kind to one another. Millions of viewers heard it every single day. They believed it. They trusted the woman who said it. But in the summer of 2020, that trust cracked wide open. Former employees started speaking out, and what they described was nothing like the smiling host on their screens. Was the kindness real, or was it the biggest performance of her career? What came out next shocked fans who had watched her show for years. Ellen DeGeneres built something rare in television, a daytime talk show that felt like a warm hug, dancing at the start of every episode. Silly games. Surprise gifts for strangers who needed help. It was warm, funny, and safe. For 19 seasons, The Ellen DeGeneres Show was a comfort zone for millions of people. Her personal story made the brand even stronger. She had come out as gay in the 1990s, faced backlash, lost her sitcom, and rebuilt her career from nothing. That struggle made her message of kindness feel earned. Audiences didn't just enjoy her show, they rooted for her. By the late 2010s, Ellen was one of the most powerful people in daytime television. Her show won dozens of Emmy Awards. Her net worth climbed into the hundreds of millions. She had built a media empire on a simple idea: be nice and good things happen to you. Do you think that message matched what was actually happening behind the cameras? Then, quietly, things started to shift. Ratings that had once felt unshakable began to slip. A few celebrities gave interviews with comments that felt oddly guarded. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that made headlines on its own. Just small, strange moments that didn't quite fit the image. Fans barely noticed. But people who worked closer to the show were noticing a lot more. And soon, they wouldn't stay quiet. By early 2020, the whispers had turned into something louder. In March that year, BuzzFeed News published a report that pulled back the curtain. Former employees described a workplace that felt nothing like the show's cheerful image. They talked about fear, about feeling silenced, about a culture where speaking up felt dangerous. This wasn't a single complaint. It was a pattern, repeated by multiple people who had never met each other. Then came July 2020. BuzzFeed published a second, much larger investigation. This time, the details were harder to ignore. 10 former and current employees spoke, some using their real names. They described racism, intimidation, and a toxic environment run by senior producers. Several claimed that when they tried to report problems to HR, nothing changed. One former employee said the culture felt controlled by fear from the top down. These weren't anonymous internet rumors anymore. These were real people, willing to put their names behind their stories. If you're enjoying stories that reveal what really happened behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe, because what happened next is something most casual fans never actually heard about. Warner Media, the company behind the show, launched a formal internal investigation. This wasn't a small internal chat. It was a serious corporate review, complete with interviews and an outside team looking into the claims. And when the investigation finished, it wasn't just talk. 3 top producers were removed from the show following the findings. These were people who had worked closely with Ellen for years, some of them since the show began. Their exit sent a clear message. Something inside that building had genuinely gone wrong. Here's what made the story spread so fast. It wasn't just about one talk show. It was about the gap between what we see and what actually happens behind it. Ellen's entire brand was built on kindness. Her tagline was practically a promise to the world. So when employees described the opposite of kindness happening backstage, the contrast felt impossible to ignore. People weren't just disappointed. Many felt genuinely betrayed, like they had been sold something that wasn't real. Social media exploded with reactions. Old clips resurfaced, clips where guests or staff seemed uncomfortable on camera, small moments that suddenly looked very different in this new light. People began rewatching years of footage, searching for clues they had missed the first time. A phrase started trending: "Ellen is not who you think she is." It wasn't just a headline anymore. It was becoming a cultural moment, and it was about to get a direct response, one that would air live, in front of millions of viewers, with Ellen herself sitting in the chair. On September 21st, 2020, Ellen walked onto her own stage to face the story head-on. It was the star of her show's 18th season, and instead of the usual dance and games, she opened with something far more serious. No music, no jokes, just her, speaking directly to the camera. She told her audience she had learned things over the summer that had made her really sad. She said she was not who people thought she was, and she took responsibility for what had happened under her name, even the parts she said she didn't know about at the time. She admitted something that surprised a lot of viewers. She said she was not a person who yells, but that as the person whose name was on the show, she was accountable for the culture that had formed around her. It was a rare moment. A celebrity, live on camera, admitting that the gap between her public image and her actual workplace was real, not denying it, not dismissing it, owning it, at least in front of the cameras. Was that apology enough? Some viewers felt she took real accountability. Others felt she avoided the harder questions about what she personally knew and when she knew it. That debate is still not fully settled today. What do you think? Was this a genuine reckoning or damage control dressed up as one? Most of us will never run a talk show or manage a staff of hundreds. But almost everyone has felt the sting of being let down by someone they trusted. A boss who says one thing and does another. A friend whose public kindness didn't match private behavior. That feeling, the gap between the mask and the person underneath, is something nearly all of us understand on some level. That's part of why this story hit so hard. It wasn't really about celebrity gossip. It was about a feeling most people already knew. The show tried to move forward. New producers came in. Ellen made public statements about change, about reviewing HR processes, about doing better. For a while, it seemed like the show might recover. But something had shifted. The trust that had taken nearly 2 decades to build had cracked in a matter of months. Ratings, which were already sliding before 2020, kept dropping. Advertisers grew cautious. The warm, easy relationship between Ellen and her audience wasn't the same anymore. And behind the scenes, a bigger decision was already being discussed. One that would end an era of daytime television that had once felt untouchable. 19th season, wrapping up in 2022. She framed it as her own choice, saying the show had simply stopped challenging her creatively after 19 years on air. But the timing was hard to separate from everything that had happened before it. A show that once felt like it could run forever was closing its doors, less than 2 years after the allegations first broke. The final season played out like a long goodbye. Celebrity guests came on to share memories. Ellen reflected on her journey, from a struggling stand-up comedian to one of the most recognized faces in television. The very last episode aired in May 2022. It was emotional, nostalgic, and, for many longtime fans, bittersweet. The show that once symbolized comfort and kindness was closing its chapter under a very different shadow than the one it opened with. So what does this story really tell us? It's a reminder that public image and private reality don't always match. A brand can be built carefully, marketed perfectly, and still hide something very different underneath. That doesn't erase the moments Ellen's show gave people. The surprise gifts, the joy, the laughter that got millions of viewers through hard days. But it does complicate them. Legacy is rarely simple. It's usually both things at once, the good and the uncomfortable, sitting side by side. Since the show ended, Ellen has largely stepped back from the spotlight. She's spoken publicly a few times, but nowhere near as often as during her 19 years on daytime TV. The empire that once felt unshakable is now mostly a memory, remembered differently depending on who you ask. For some, she's still the woman who made them laugh through hard times. For others, she's a lesson in how careful a brand really was, and how far it was from what happened behind the curtain. This story raises another question. How did other daytime hosts manage to keep their reputations intact through decades in the spotlight, without the same kind of fallout? That story is just as revealing, and you can watch it right now. When the Ellen DeGeneres Show returned for its 18th season in September 2020, millions of viewers tuned in to see what Ellen would say. This was no ordinary season premiere. Instead of jokes and dancing, the episode opened with Ellen speaking directly to her audience about the controversy. She admitted that she had learned people on her staff had experiences that did not match the values the show claimed to represent. She said changes had been made and promised to do better. It was one of the most serious moments in the show's history. But rebuilding trust is often much harder than losing it. Television ratings, which had already begun declining before the controversy, as is common for many long-running daytime shows, continued to fall afterward. Industry reports from outlets such as Nielsen and major entertainment publications showed that viewership dropped significantly compared with the show's peak years. While no single reason can fully explain the decline, many analysts believe the controversy played an important role alongside changing viewing habits and increased competition from streaming platforms and social media. As public opinion shifted, every interview, every joke, and every headline about Ellen was examined more closely than ever before. Some longtime fans stopped watching. Others continued to support her, arguing that one person's reputation should not be defined by the actions of an entire organization. In May 2021, Ellen announced that the show would end after its 19th season. She explained in interviews, including one with a Hollywood Reporter, that she had already been considering ending the show because she wanted new creative challenges. However, she also acknowledged that the controversy had affected both her personally and professionally. Many media experts believe the decision was influenced by several factors, including the public backlash, declining ratings, and Ellen's own desire to move on. The exact weight of each factor remains known only to those directly involved. As the final episodes aired in 2022, there was a feeling that an era of television was coming to a close. For nearly 20 years, The Ellen DeGeneres Show had been part of daily life for millions of viewers. It launched viral moments, introduced unforgettable guests, and gave away millions of dollars in cash, gifts, and charitable donations. Yet the ending felt bittersweet. Some people remembered Ellen as a groundbreaking comedian who helped change television history. Others remembered the workplace controversy that reshaped her public image. Both views became part of her legacy. Then another question began to spread through Hollywood. What happened to Ellen after the cameras stopped rolling? Did she quietly disappear from public life, or was she planning a completely different future away from daytime television? The answer surprised many people, and it revealed a side of Ellen that few viewers had seen during her years on the air. When the final episode of The Ellen DeGeneres Show aired in May 2022, it marked the end of one of the longest-running daytime programs in American television. After nearly 2 decades in front of the cameras, Ellen stepped away from the daily spotlight. For someone who had been on television almost every weekday, the silence felt unusual. Many people expected her to quickly launch another talk show or announce a major television comeback. That did not happen. Instead, Ellen appeared to focus on a much quieter life with her wife, actress Portia de Rossi. The couple continued spending time at their homes, including properties they had bought and sold over the years. They have long been known for renovating and selling luxury homes, a hobby that became almost as famous as Ellen's television career. Even after leaving daytime TV, Ellen did not disappear completely. She made occasional public appearances, continued supporting charitable causes, and remained active on social media, though far less frequently than during the height of her show. In 2024, she also released a Netflix stand-up special for your approval, where she addressed the controversy with humor and reflected on how dramatically her public image had changed. Some viewers appreciated her willingness to talk about the difficult period in her life. Others felt the special did not fully answer the questions that had been raised. Once again, opinions remained deeply divided. One thing, however, became clear. The woman who had once dominated daytime television was no longer trying to be everywhere. Instead, she seemed to be choosing projects carefully and living more privately than before. This raises an interesting question. Can someone truly leave behind a public image that has followed them for decades? Hollywood history suggests it is not easy. Once celebrity becomes closely connected to a major controversy, that chapter often remains part of their story forever. At the same time, Ellen's career cannot be understood only through the lens of her final years on television. She helped change comedy, broke barriers for LGBTQ representation, and inspired countless entertainers who came after her. Those achievements remain part of the historical record alongside the workplace controversy. So what was Ellen really hiding? The answer depends on what people mean by the question. Credible reporting uncovered serious concerns about the workplace culture on her show, leading to investigations, leadership changes, and public apologies. But many of the more dramatic rumors that spread online were never supported by verified evidence. Over time, facts and speculation became mixed together, making it difficult for many people to separate one from the other. That is why Ellen's story continues to spark debate. It is not a simple tale of hero or villain. It is a story of a person whose remarkable success was followed by intense public scrutiny, forcing millions to rethink what they believed they knew. But there's one final piece of the story, the lasting legacy Ellen left behind, and why her rise and fall still matter far beyond Hollywood. For years, Ellen DeGeneres stood as a symbol of success. She broke barriers in comedy, helped change television history, and built one of the most recognizable brands in entertainment. At the same time, the workplace controversy surrounding her show became an equally important part of her public story. Those two realities now exist side by side, making her legacy one of the most debated in modern television. History often remembers public figures in complicated ways. Ellen's story is no different. Many people still admire her for helping increase LGBTQ representation in mainstream media, especially after publicly coming out in 1997, during a time when doing so carried major professional risks. Others focus on the findings of the 2020 workplace investigation and believe leaders must be held responsible for the culture inside their organizations. The truth is that both parts of her story deserve to be understood. Credible reporting, including investigations by BuzzFeed News and Warner Media, documented serious concerns raised by former employees. At the same time, many of the dramatic claims that spread across social media were never confirmed by reliable evidence. Separating verified fact from online rumors is essential when looking back at what really happened. There is also a larger lesson beyond one celebrity. Fame can create an image that millions of people believe they know, but public image is never the whole story. Television shows involve hundreds of employees, producers, executives, writers, and crew members. Success depends on far more than the person standing in front of the camera, and when problems appear, responsibility can become far more complex than many people first assume. Most of us will never become world famous, but almost everyone has experienced being judged by appearances, working under pressure, or discovering that reality is more complicated than it first seemed. That may be the biggest reason Ellen's story connected with so many people around the world. It reminded us that success does not protect anyone from criticism, and reputation can change much faster than it is built. As this chapter closes, another question remains. Why have some Hollywood stars managed to survive major controversies, while others saw their careers change almost overnight? The answer reveals surprising patterns that continue shaping the entertainment industry today.